Hey everybody, what is up? My name is Martin and welcome to 2K Central. So, Sign of the Times just released and I have to say this is, in my own opinion, the strongest piece of content Hangar 13 have released thus far, and I'm here to give a spoiler-free rundown and to discuss both the positives and the negatives of this expansion. So should you buy Mafia 3's Sign of the Times? I love doing that. Alright, number one, as always, let's begin with the narrative. So Sign of the Times revolves around Lincoln's pursuit of a ritualistic cult called the Unsung Galante. I mess it up every time, I'm sorry. So Lincoln is actually unaware of this cult's presence in the city until he is approached by Father James. The two visit Sammy's bar with the goal of reminiscing about the past and to finally, hopefully, mourn the death of Sammy, which obviously Lincoln completely avoided throughout the entirety of Mafia 3. Although as they both approach the bar, out comes a woman called Anna, who is followed by some creepy cult members. Lincoln kills them, like he does, then explores Sammy's bar and learns that it has been used for a dark ritual, though the reasons are unknown. And that is how the plot is set up, and at the beginning and middle of the DLC it's all rather confusing and mysterious. As you begin to explore the three places of darkness, examine bodies and discover clues, both you and Lincoln start learning about the cult's leader, Bonnie, her motives, and a lot more about Anna, and that's putting it mildly. Now, without spoiling anything, this expansion is the most powerful from a narrative perspective. It includes some really meaningful moments in my opinion from Father James, and one or two scenes that are seriously quite heartbreaking. If you're someone seeking a dark and memorable narrative, then this one is for you. And number two, the characters. So similar to the previous two expansions, Sign of the Times introduces a collection of new characters. There's one or two that I won't name because they're introduced later in the story and they might be deemed a spoiler. So as previously mentioned, Bonnie, the leader of the bloody cult, plays a pivotal role in the story as the antagonist. She crosses paths with Lincoln throughout the narrative, and every time she does happen to make an appearance, it's quite unnerving, creepy, and becomes quite clear that she's a complete nutter. Overall, she's exactly the type of personality you'd expect from the leader of a violent cult. Persuasive, charismatic, and capable of exploiting people who are in need. And the next character is Anna. Lincoln is introduced to Anna almost immediately in Sign of the Times. She's pretty much the victim of the story who's clearly been through some traumatic events, and you sincerely hope throughout that she's capable of growing and overcoming her demons. And with Lincoln Clay by her side, you do feel like that's a possibility. Honestly, she's a pretty memorable character that provides one or two moments I certainly won't forget, and something that really surprised me was Lincoln becomes very attached to her. And for the first time since the night of blood at Sammy's bar, he actually starts to care for someone on a deeper level again. And the final character I'll mention briefly is Lily, who is introduced after completing the narrative. She is Sammy's sister and sets up plans to rebuild Sammy's bar, all in the hope of giving the black population much needed positivity and inspiration. Number three, it has an extremely good mission structure. I know, surprising. So Sign of the Times seriously has the best mission structure Hangar 13 have offered thus far. At first you explore a VIP bar, three locations of mystery known as Places of Darkness, which eventually lead you to two other unique locations within New Bordeaux. But each area provides some well-placed tension, and each happen to offer something different in terms of the narrative and their overall aesthetic. And as you explore these locations and seek clues that will lead you to the truth, cult members will actually lurk in the shadows, stage retaliation events and ambushes to halt your progress, which can get a little nervy at times as deranged women charge you down with knives, though it did lead to some hilarious gameplay moments. If you chose to use close combat, it really feels like a complete and utter mismatch as you watch Lincoln slam some crazy bitches onto the floor. But the layout of each location is extremely linear. The game constantly pushes you forward to gain another small piece of the narrative with every building you explore. Also, to mention a negative, a minor downside of the mission structure is yet again some pacing issues and being forced to drive across the map to each location. Now usually I don't give a shit about driving from point A to point B, but two of the Places of Darkness literally took less than 5 minutes to explore and complete, which just made driving to each location feel like a chore by the end. And personally I feel like this game needs some form of taxi service for fast travel, but otherwise a huge improvement from the previous two expansions and obviously the full game. Number four, decent new features. Now let's talk about the newly introduced focus mode, which allows Lincoln to slow down time as he fires his weapon and with every headshot you can manage, the mode's timer is extended. At the beginning I had very mixed feelings towards this edition when it was first announced. I thought it would be very overpowered and also take away from the game's immersion, but honestly it is fine, although I'd prefer if we'd seen some more innovation because it feels slightly too similar to other games. But overall, it's a good addition. The game doesn't force you into positions in which you have to use it, so it's easily avoided, and ultimately I found the mode slightly fun, admittedly so. Sign of the Times also introduces throwing knives, which honestly did feel a little OP to me. You can throw knives from cover and reclaim those throwing knives from people's bodies, which just allowed you to create this endless chain of throwing knife kills, but yet again, a decent addition. And they also introduced 2 new outfits, one being a motorcycle club jacket, which I found slightly funny due to the fact that there are no motorcycles in the game, but that's cool, I guess. And number 5, Sammy's Bar. So after completing Sign of the Times' main story, Father James asks Lincoln to pick up Sammy's sister Lily, who recently returns to New Bordeaux with a plan to rebuild Sammy's Bar. With Lincoln's in-game money, you can completely renovate and decorate it. Now, there isn't much in terms of customization here. You basically spend a fixed amount for upgrades for the bar, kitchen, better clothes for your staff, upgrade both the basement and office upstairs, and with every major upgrade, Lincoln unlocks the odd mission, one being defend the bar from the Dixie mob, and you can also unlock a new race through a bartender, in which you can win the brand new Samson Harrier, which might be my new favourite car in the game. Also, unlike the previous 2 expansions, side ventures, herbalism and bounty hunting, Sammy's Bar feels like it belongs in the game, and it gives players a meaningful option to spend in-game money, although it doesn't exactly have much use. It just looks rather cool and has some sentimental value, I guess. Number 6, and this is the biggest negative, has no relation to the Mafia. Now this is by far the biggest negative and critique I've seen, and I have personally, regarding Sign of the Times. Although the characters, narrative and the overall tone for this expansion were extremely compelling and interesting, the DLC took another large step away from staying true to the Mafia series, which has been a noticeable trend since Mafia 3 was announced. And throughout Sign of the Times I had to repeatedly remind myself that this was indeed a Mafia game, not just the random adventures of Link and Clay. Therefore, if you're a Mafia purist who lives and dies by Mafia 1 and 2, I would advise you to avoid the expansion because it'll most likely just piss you off and possibly cause a hissy fit. But if you enjoyed Mafia 3 and the previous 2 expansions, then you'll love this DLC. It's Hangar 13's best work thus far, and honestly made me think, what if they had more time and included a similar mission structure for the entirety of the game? But here are my overall thoughts. Right now, Sign of the Times is $9.99 in Ireland at least. It's longer and better than the previous 2 expansions, and if you're looking for something to play this July because there's not many options and you want to get back into Mafia 3, then I would recommend you pick up this expansion. But in terms of the price, I'd still lean towards it being worth $4.99 considering the content it offers, and yet again you'll be finished with this expansion within 2 hours. So yeah, you should buy Sign of the Times, but preferably at a lower price. But yeah, that is the end of the video guys. Per usual, I have a question. Would you guys personally recommend Sign of the Times? But as always guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this expansion, this video, and for more content like this, stay tuned here on 2K Central. Take it easy guys. Bye bye.
Everything's absolutely splendid. Walking down the street and you hear that heavy beat.